Welcome in episode 255 of the Skate Podcast. I'm Brian DeFelice, joined by Bridget Prue and Scott McLaughlin. The Bruins played two games against two teams from the state of New York this weekend, and both games took more than regulation to figure out. Bruins took the first one over the Islanders on Long Island in a shootout, and then they fell to the Rangers at the Garden yesterday. Bridget and Scott, opening shifts from the weekend.
Well, David Pastrnak got ejected for the first time in his career on a boarding of Ryan Lindgren, which, Pastrnak had really brought the physicality, was one of several Bruins who kind of turned it up a notch on Saturday and had landed a really good clean hit on Lindgren earlier in the second period. And then kind of, catches him a little from behind, right on the left shoulder, drives him face first into the dasher. There was some blood. And they called a major on the ice, went to review, upheld the call, 5 minutes, game misconduct. Jim Montgomery, after the game, said he didn't agree with it, didn't think he got him in the numbers at all, compared it to Giovanni Smith's hit from behind him, Brad Marchand, a couple of weeks ago. That was only a 2-minute minor. And I would say I partially agree with him, partially disagree with him. I agree that the NHL has been extremely inconsistent on hits from behind, and that's a problem because guys just don't know what boarding is 2 minutes and which one's going to get them ejected. That said, I did think Pastrnak got him from behind, and in my perfect world, that is 5 minutes in a game. I thought it was a pretty dangerous hit. I think it almost looked like he expected Lindgren to kind of turn towards him, and Lindgren just never did. He kind of kept his back turned the whole time. So that was a tough hit for Pastrnak. I'm sure we can break it down. Doesn't look like there's going to be any supplemental discipline, so looks like it'll just stay at the one game, and Pastrnak will be fine for Tuesday.
Yeah, and had really hard to lose him in a game and not have him in overtime and, not have him the rest of the way through the third period. But my opening shift has to do with the Bruins defense. McAvoy's been out, Forbort's been out, and we've seen a few different defensemen come in relief. Mason Lohrei's been up ever since Forbort went out of the lineup, and Ian Mitchell came up and played a few games, but he was just recently optioned back to Providence. And instead, Parker Weatherspoon has come up and played the last two games against the Islanders and the Rangers. Eventually, we'll get to you guys' thoughts on how you think he played, if it's the right decision to keep him up, send Mitchell down. I thought it was odd that he didn't play against either the Islanders or the Rangers, but that probably, him being sent down probably is a little bit of a precursor potentially to getting McAvoy back.
Yeah, and for me, it was the second time we got a chance to see the Bruins and the Rangers square off this year. Obviously, two of the top teams in the East. They've been kind of neck and neck for a while. So the first time the Bruins played them in Madison Square Garden, it wasn't great. It was I want to say it was like a 7-4 loss or something like that. And it was a Swiss cheese type of night for the Bruins defensively. And then obviously a closer game last night. And Bridget, as you mentioned, losing your top player and arguably one of the best forwards in the world, not named Connor McDavid, in the later stretch of that game doesn't help them, obviously. So, but I guess just how do you guys feel the Bruins stack up with the Rangers as the top dogs in the East? The record's pretty similar. The points are the same. Rangers are above the Bruins for tiebreakers and whatnot, but the Rangers are a team on paper where you look at them and you say, it makes sense that they're, towards the top of the conference. They have good goaltending. Jonathan Quick's kind of came out of nowhere and had a resurgence, obviously, behind Shesterkin. The blue line is good. And up front, the Rangers have high-end skill and depth. The Bruins have a lot of that, but they lack maybe like that extra high-end forward right now on their team. But they don't look too out of place against the Rangers. Do they look like equals when they square off against each other?
I would say after this weekend, pretty close to it. Now, maybe you weren't quite getting either team's best because they're both coming off of back-to-back. But to me, it was really, you touched on it, Brian, but it was really encouraging to see the Bruins play much better defensively against this team because we know the Rangers are a pretty high flying team. They play a fairly wide open style. And down in New York, right after Thanksgiving, the Bruins got totally exposed. They had no answers. They were giving up odd man rushes, seam passes, like just could not defend anything to save their lives. And then this time around, not that it was perfect defensively. There were a couple times they got stuck in the zone, but structurally much better. You didn't see nearly as many odd man rushes. You didn't see those seam passes through the slot in the offensive zone. And they do it with McAvoy and Zacha out of the lineup. Two guys who are very important to their team defense. So I think that would make me feel better after seeing that. I do think they're fairly close. Like, sure, the Rangers look more talented on paper, but there's question marks there. Like, they have not been a very good 5-on-5 team this year. They're actually -1 at 5-on-5 for the season. So, I think 5-on-5 success tends to correlate to playoff success pretty well. So, the Rangers have now beaten the Bruins twice, but I think there's some question marks there. So, yeah, if I'm the Bruins, I feel pretty good about my chances after this weekend. Not that, I'm saying they're like clearly better than the Rangers or anything. I think it's obvious they're pretty close, but you can feel better after this than you did after that 7-4 game.
The Rangers are still, they're the real deal. That's not like if we were talking about the Bruins and how they would match up against the Rangers in the playoffs, that'd be a long, grueling series, and it'd be a frustrating one. I think that would be, it would be fun to have a Boston-New York series, but it would be frustrating. We've seen the way the Rangers played the Bruins that first game, and they pressure and they kind of take advantage of some of the Bruins' weaknesses. But like you said, Scott, the Bruins being able to handle them, obviously they lose in overtime, but being able to do what they did defensively in the second matchup between the two teams without McAvoy and without Zacha and without Pastrnak for a chunk of the third, it was encouraging.
Yeah, that last part too, I should have mentioned that as well. Not only does Pastrnak go down, but you also start without Zacha and McAvoy, and just looking through the Bruins schedule, I'm trying to see what their record is in clean games without Zacha and McAvoy. I feel like it's I was in the middle of looking that up, but I feel like the team's been playing pretty well without those two guys. Like they've been stepping up. Like Lindholm has been stepping up. Carlo's been stepping up. Obviously, Morgan Geekie's been stepping up in his role. So that it's also good to see that the Bruins played two really good teams this weekend. The Islanders are always stingy, but they've been playing some really good hockey. I think they've had points in 8 or 9 consecutive games, and obviously they play the Rangers tight. So it's good to see that when you're not at full strength, you can't say this Bruins team doesn't have depth. It's not that they don't have, clearly they have depth. It's just that they don't have, like I said earlier, they do seem to be missing like that one higher end forward. But if you don't have depth, I don't think you're playing as well as they have been and competing the way that they have been without, what is on paper your top center and obviously your top defenseman.
Yeah, and I think, barring something crazy before the trade deadline, like this is probably going to be a Bruins team that has to grind out wins, and that's often how it is in the playoffs anyways. They're going to have to do it throughout the regular season, and they certainly have so far, obviously, if you look at their record. So I think that's, pretty encouraging, like that they're still finding ways to win, finding ways to get points. It's just, there aren't going to be as many 2, 3, 4 goal wins as last year. It's just not going to happen. And they're not going to have as dynamic of an offense as, I don't know, the Avalanche or Canucks or Vegas. Because like you said, they don't have as much high-end talent. They have Pastrnak, who's obviously one of the most dynamic players in the world. Marchand can still get hot, but maybe not as consistently as he did in his prime. And then after that, it's a lot of guys where you just need a couple guys to step up every night. And it's going to have to be by committee. And, because you just don't have that consistent, third scorer. And, we can all hold out hope that Jake DeBrusk gets going at some point, and maybe he will. But right now, he's not that. He's not producing like that. So, they're going to have to grind out some more wins. But when you have the defense and goaltending that they have, that gives you a chance to do that.
Yeah, and to speak to the depth was kind of part of my opening shift, having to do with people stepping up without McAvoy and Forbert. But if you also look at the offensive side of things against the Islanders and the Rangers, a few different forwards shuffled in and out of the lineup. So Brown came in and played center for the Saturday game, and Lauko came out, and Boquist came and played his second game of the season against the Islanders on the right wing of the third line. And then obviously we've talked about how Morgan Geekie has moved up from being a fourth liner to, first of all, getting so much power play time and being on the top line with David Pastrnak. And he has taken that opportunity and completely run with it. So when we talked about the Bruins losing their first and second line center to start the season, you no longer have Bergeron and you no longer have Krejci. Well, then all of a sudden then you no longer have Zacha, and Friday you no longer had Poitras because he was taking a rest day. So we're talking about needing centers to step up, and Geekie played well as the first line center and on the power play. And Trent Frederick had to play a game at center as well, which we've mentioned before. That's his natural position, and he's done it before. But I think that was the first time this season, or, maybe he's done it in chunks here and there, but having to get other guys to contribute at center with Zacha out.
Yeah, I thought Geekie obviously had two really good games, and then I think a quieter game on Saturday. And to some extent, that's expected because he's not a true number one center, so he's probably not going to give you 3, 4, 5 games in a row like that. I thought Frederick did pretty well at center on Friday. But yeah, obviously, even though Geekie did a really good job filling in, I think you clearly do still miss Zacha, just because it gives you so much more depth. And I thought, you see Saturday, and it's obviously part of Geekie maybe having a quieter night is that Pastrnak gets ejected. Maybe that line could have done something in the third period, even though they had been a little quieter to that point. But you take Pastrnak off, and all of a sudden, Geekie's just not going to be as effective at a center with different rotations of wingers joining him. It's obviously having Pastrnak on his right was a big reason for why he looked so good those previous 2 games.
And essentially, you're not a number one center as soon as Pastrnak goes out of the game, because that's not your number one line anymore. So you're kind of just throwing together different combinations at that point. We're seeing where Geekie fits, but it's not a first line if there's no Pastrnak on it.
So to something I mentioned earlier, just it's been 4 games without McAvoy entirely, and pretty much 4 games without Zacha entirely. I think he played 1 period against Phoenix, or Arizona, I should say. And the Bruins are 2-0-2. So obviously they've gotten points in every game without the 2 of them. And also, Matt Poitras also was scratched against the Islanders. So there's they've been without some contributors, and to put up those points, it's impressive. What did you guys make of Poitras's game against the Rangers after getting scratched against the Islanders? A scheduled sitting. We can debate till we're blue in the face if we agree with it or not. It doesn't really matter at this point. It seems to be what the Bruins are going with for now. But he impacts the game against the Rangers with another assist.
Yeah, I think these back-to-backs are going to be if you're looking ahead to try to predict when he's going to get a night off, that's going to be a natural place to start. I thought he played well Saturday. You mentioned the assist, but even beyond that, I thought he was helping to create chances. I thought his line was good with Van Riemsdyk and Frederick. That might have been close to the best that we've seen that line, which I think other times that they've been together has not always clicked, has maybe shown some flashes. I thought they had some, pretty steady offensive zone time at times, and Poitras's a big part of that. And he has the nice rush and dish over to Van Riemsdyk on the wing. on that rush that ends up leading to Frederick's goals. So yeah, good job by him coming back in. And the second interesting thing with Patra is they're still not announcing any decision on his World Junior availability, but to me, a game like Saturday is just more reason not to send him. Like everyone's talking about, his confidence and could he go get it back playing in World Juniors, and it's like, how you get it back? You get back in the lineup on Saturday and get an assist. Like that's how you get your confidence back. I just wouldn't be that worried about it. Like I think he can do that in Boston.
Yeah, I hope they announce the decision on that sooner rather than later, but I did find it odd that they didn't rule it out yet. Though I think internally the decision's probably already been made. They just haven't said so. Who knows? But there was also a scary moment for Patra in Saturday's game where he, in the kind of early on in the second period, he took that hit and landed. It almost looked like on his wrist or something, and he had to go down the tunnel. I think he came back maybe 6 or 7 minutes later. Luckily, there was nothing that happened with that, and he played out the rest of the game. But for a second there, it was like, oh, wow, he might be hurt. He might be out. And then, I'm sure it crossed a lot of Bruins fans' mind, like, well, now there goes another center. But he ended up coming back and playing. And I agree with you, Scott. I thought he played pretty well.
So another notable moment from the Rangers game was Trent Frederick, just an assist away from the Gordie Howe hat trick. Obviously, took that inadvertent, in air quotes, we'll call it, high stick from Jacob Trouba the last time that these two teams played, and he got slapped with a hefty $5,000 fine for these player standards. A lot of people thought it could have been a suspension. And I think the three of us here all thought it probably could have been a suspension for at least a game.
Jack Edwards said he should have been suspended for half a season. So,
well, he said if it was Marchand,
yeah,
it would have half a season,
right,
which is probably true.
That's probably true. That's probably true. So anyway, Trent Frederick takes matters into his own hands, and he and Drew would drop the gloves. Quick fight, but thoughts on Frederick taking on a guy who's pretty big in stature, and Drew is tough.
Yeah, good for Frederick. Like you could tell that they were kind of jawing at each other even in the first period, so you could tell Frederick kind of wanted that, and maybe even to an extent felt like he needed it because when that happened, Frederick had like almost no reaction, and he's talked about it since, and basically it's like he was just shocked. Like he almost couldn't fathom that like Trouba actually just two-handed him upside the head. And, so he was like looking around like, wait, what just happened? And like, there was no penalty. So then he was like, well, maybe, I don't know, maybe it wasn't that or something. So I think I think he was really caught off.
Confusion. It was
right.
He was definitely confused. Like, wait, that's not because it seemed like the most obvious call ever. And then when they didn't call it, he was just so confused.
Yeah. So, I'm sure some of it was like pride where it was like he felt like he needed to answer to it himself. So yeah, that was good. I just thought he had a good game in general. The goal, the fight, I thought he was involved in a couple other chances. Had one shift that stood out where he was like borderline stiff arming Rangers defenders, protecting the puck. And it's pretty fitting for him to have a game like that it was one of the Bruins era nights. And it was the lunch Pail A.C era, which the Bruins have now, they classified it as like 1976 to I think 85 or something. And really the lunch Pail A.C was like just the late 70s. But John Wensink was one of the Bruins from that era who was in the house and on in pregame. And we got to talk to him between periods. And I didn't know this, but he actually knows Trent Frederick and his family because Wensink lives in St. Louis. Frederick's from St. Louis, and he was actually one of his coaches for a Pee Wee tournament at one point. So it was funny. He was asked, like, does anyone on this current team, could they fit in on that team? And he immediately said Frederick, and then like talked about their relationship. And pretty fitting that Frederick then goes out and has that kind of game, like you said, assist shy of a Gordie Howe hat trick.
It was funny because in the first intermission, Adam Pellerin talked to Frederick, and he was like, "I wanted to," or maybe it was the second intermission. He was like, "I wanted to get that fight out of the way early because of the fact that of who was in the building and kind of fit in with the lunch pail era night and everything." Because they showed, I mean, they had guys come out of the penalty box pregame for instead of they didn't all come out of the tunnel. Like some of them came out of the penalty box, including Mike Milbury. And it was just a very symbolic, like, yeah, these guys used to fight all the time. It was a tough team. And Frederick might be the only one of the Bruins right now. Obviously, we're not including Lucic because he's not with the team right now, and probably never will be again. He's probably the only guy on the roster that kind of steps up to it. And I don't think he got as much as he wanted to out of the fight. He won it, but it seemed like he would have liked to actually get a few more whacks in on Trouba. And it actually did happen right after Patra got hurt. So it was like, oh, is he retaliating? Like, is he mad about the hit? And then I'm like, nope, that's Trouba. That has everything to do with what happened between those two guys last game. And the animosity has been there because we've heard Trent Frederick talk about this hit just random nights in between the two games. Like he's been thinking about this for a while. And I think that the team in general has, because it was, in their opinion, a missed, not a missed call, but on top of the missed call, a suspension that should have come and never did. So you kind of have to take matters into your own hands.
So one thing that took place in the Islanders game that didn't come to fruition in the Rangers game was the power play clicking. So against the Islanders, if it wasn't for the power play, the Bruins, they probably don't win that game. Obviously, going 3 for 3 in the power play, along with stellar goaltending, that was an opportunistic game for the Bruins, right? Goaltending kind of bails them out a lot early. You get a couple of power plays. When you're down 2-0, you tie the game, and it was just kind of a seesaw from there. But still, the power play looked good with Shattenkirk back there. Obviously, that's Charlie McAvoy's job to lose when he's in the lineup. But while the power play didn't perform against the Rangers, what were they doing against the Islanders that maybe they aren't doing with McAvoy back there consistently, or was it just one of those games where it was working for them? They seem to have adopted like that pass to the goal line, quick to the bumper, which you've seen other teams do in the past, not so much the Bruins, which is how Geeky scored, and then Shattenkirk with a couple nice passes, one to Pastrnak and one for a tip from James Van Riemsdyk. So it looked really good against the Islanders, and it's along with Allmark, it saved them 2 points.
Yeah, that play, that kind of triangle from circle to goal line to the bumper, like that's just a dynamite play if you can get it. And you're right, like you see other teams go to that as a go-to, and the Bruins don't seem to try it as much, but I really like, it feels like they should have the personnel to do, especially if it's going to be that unit where it's like Van Riemsdyk is so good in that goal line area. And I think we've seen that he's also a good small space passer in addition to, getting deflected goals and rebounds. And then if it's a right shot there, like Geeky, like that makes a lot of sense. You could do it on the other side too, but like that's a little bit tougher of a pass. It's not as natural. So yeah, I do wonder if they keep that setup where it's Van Riemsdyk and Geeky with that play in mind. And then, the other goal from that game that really stands out was the one that Shattenkirk sets up for Pastrnak, and that's just like a classic kind of second effort play where Geeky almost turns the puck over because he kind of whiffs on a shot, but then sort of combination of him and Shattenkirk win it back, and the Islanders were like already starting to go the other way. All of a sudden, the Bruins are hounding the puck, they get it back, and now the Islanders PK is stretched, and you end up with that seam from Shattenkirk to Pastrnak. So, yeah, I mean, it's pretty basic stuff, right? It's a set play to the bumper, and it's just winning pucks back with second, third efforts. So that's stuff that they should be able to do more, and just sometimes they don't.
Yeah, and in both the Islanders and the Rangers games, the officiating was a little bit weird and off. The if you recall,
it was really bad.
It was so bad.
I feel like an off game for officials is when they're on.
Yeah, it's more common than not for them to really screw some things up. Well, Pastrnak in the Rangers game, they end up going to overtime, having to kill off a high sticking call, or was it high sticking? No, a tripping call on Pasta, who was skating, and the guy he was defending just blew an edge, and Pastrnak was pissed, but yeah, there was a lot of weird calls, some non-calls. It was just a weird game in general. So, like, yes, the Bruins drew a few penalties and they were able to score on them. If you recall, there was a Marchand goal that got called back that instead of being called a goal, it was called a no goal, but then it ended up being a penalty on the Islanders, and then they score on that. It was kind of a disaster, a mess of things. There was another Islanders goal that was called back for goalie interference. Romanov scored a second goal, but that one got waved off because Ullmark got landed on. It was a whole weird situation in terms of special teams and penalties and things like that.
Which I think they got both of the no goals right. On the Marchand one, I was just curious if they were going to have, irrefutable evidence to overturn it, because it was kind of hard to tell, like, what does it hit last, his glove or the shaft of his stick? And, it looked like his glove. I just didn't know if it was going to be conclusive. Someone was arguing with me on Twitter about this, and they're like, well, it's inadvertent, so it should count. And I'm like, no, like the rule's pretty clear. Like, if it goes in off your glove, it's no goal. It doesn't matter if you meant to do it or not. It's the same thing with like the offensive zone hand pass, which I think if you guys remember, like, I think it might have been last year, the Bruins had a play where, like, it might have been DeBrusque who fell, and it, like, his glove just grazed the puck, and then the Bruins scored, but it came back because it was technically a hand pass. And it's like, yeah, like it sucks and it's kind of touchy, but like that is the rule, and it's kind of black and white.
When you say it's black and white, Scott, does that like so if somebody were to take a shot from the point and it redirected off of somebody's glove, that wouldn't count?
I'm pretty sure that's true. Yeah, I think the rule says it can't be a deflection off a glove.
I always figured it was like if there was like a pushing motion there or something like that.
Yeah, you'd think that because the kicking, like, for kicked in puck, it's like it can go in off your skate, but you can't kick it in. So yeah, it seems like it should be that, but it's not.
Yeah, well, in any event, I mean, Marchand was very he was, as we know, we watched him for over a decade. He was very sneaky about it. Those of us who've watched him know that he absolutely intentionally kind of like directed that in, but he was so good at disguising it. It was just like a prove it type situation. And to Scott, to your point, like, I don't think they could have. I just think they knew what was up, and in the spirit of what Marchand did, they got the call right, because the only way they would have not called it a non-goal is if they they just didn't want to have enough evidence to overturn it. But we all knew that was he was getting away with one there. He knew what he was doing is what I'll say. But yeah, the Pastrnak one, it's tough. It's like you got 45 seconds left in the game, and a guy, the ref in the neutral zone is gonna call a trip that just wasn't a trip. It's like, just because something looks like a trip, like, you have to be positive, especially if you're the ref that's like halfway down the ice. Like, yeah, like Pastrnak got Palmieri's skate like 3 seconds earlier, and then he toe picked. It's like you just can't make that call at that point in the game. Fortunately for the Bruins, it didn't come back to haunt them. But yeah, the officiating, it's just you get used to not expecting great officiating these days.
Well, and Carlo, who did he? Okay, so they called Carlo for interference in the Rangers game because Lafreniere kind of fell down when he was just made basic contact with him in front of the net, and Brick mentioned what about that as a penalty? So that was another one where it was like, that's nothing. That's just like a defenseman clearing out in front of his net completely legally, but the guy goes down, and it's like, no, that's a penalty.
Yeah, it was like the Rangers realized that if they just went down, they were going to get a power play out of it. And it sucked because like you would have liked to have seen the Bruins try to hold on to that 1-0 lead with the refs staying out of the way, and that just wasn't going to happen. Like it seemed like every time someone hit the ice, there was a call, and it didn't really matter how it happened. So like when you touched on like the Lindholm one, you know, a couple minutes after that, it's like the guy lifts his stick. I think it was Fox. Yeah, he like lifts Lindholm's stick into his own face. I thought Fox going down on the Heinen. I don't know if it's a trip or a slash that they called earlier in the game. Like that was a dive too. That even if you think there was a penalty there, like you also easily could have called embellishment. So yeah, that was that was pretty weak from the Rangers. Like I don't usually think of them as like a team that dives and flops around for calls, but it certainly seemed like they resorted to that on Saturday, and I guess to their benefit it worked because they kept getting the calls.
And that's exactly why when we were talking about Brian's opening shift, I said if this is a playoff series between these two teams, it'd be really frustrating because watching that as well as the first game, what with the no calls and missed calls, it just seems like that's what kind of series it would be. Like people trying to get calls, diving. Apparently, you know, Trouba can whack Frederick in the face and not get it caught. Like it just felt like something that Bruins fans might not even enjoy watching because it would just be one of those series. Which it happened similarly with the Islanders a few years ago. You remember that, Scott? It just the officiating in that series that the Bruins ended up losing just seems so off.
The New York Saints.
Yeah, the New York Saints.
I love that. I love that comment from Cassidy. You know who must be frustrated is any goalie facing David Pastrnak in a shootout. We gotta talk about this. He's already one of the best goal scorers in the world heading into the season, and he always seemed to be pretty good in the shootouts. And now he's just unfair. Like now he just comes in and to say he makes it look easy. It's insane. He's not even looking. His stick is and the puck is like literally like behind his back, and he's just rifling using all the flex in these 2023 sticks that they use, and it's not even fair. I mean, Charlie Coyle had an amazing shootout goal just before Pastrnak. A little bit more of a traditional, just high-end finesse deke top shelf shot, and then and you're like, oh my god, that was filthy. And then Pastrnak comes down and just like looks like a glitch video game goal, and just in and out of the net before you can even know what happened. It's just, what were you guys' reactions watching those beauties?
Yeah, the way he shoots off the hip, where it's like kind of partially hidden. I can't imagine like being goalie trying to, because you're just not expecting from that angle for someone to be able to get that much velocity on it, and it does look like a gunslinger in like an old western, just like draw and fire, and so Sorokin's reaction to it, like you could just tell, you just kind of like see on his face, he's just like, well, I can't do anything about that. Like, what the hell? All right, good night. I think
we tried.
Pete Blackburn on Twitter called it "fuck you, good luck" move, and it's like, yeah, like that kind of captures the attitude of it.
I think Brian like describing it as a glitch is pretty accurate, because you're like, there doesn't seem like there was enough time for that to happen. Like it was in the net before you even knew what was happening. And there was another glitch goal, Lorai's goal, I would say, kind of felt like that. It's like, where the hell did that go in? He took the shot from behind the goal line. All of a sudden the puck's in the back of the net. It's like, that seemed like it shouldn't happen, but Lorai got his second goal of the season. And Coyle, so in terms of the shootout, Coyle's always been good at shootouts. That's one of his, like, we talk about how he can bring a lot to the team on the penalty kill. We talk about how good he is at face-offs, how good he is at puck possession. But then once you get into the later stages of the game, you want him in your shootout. So that's something else he's been able to bring since the Bruins traded for him 5 seasons ago now. How many seasons has it been?
Yeah,
I think it was 5 seasons since he came over from Minnesota. So he's always been good at that. And So you see that on display, and then Pastrnak followed it up like, he just had to one up him, I guess.
I think Coyle's first game as a Bruin was against the Blues in the regular season back in 2019, and I think that game he had a shootout goal in his first game as a Bruin, I believe. But yeah, no, I mean, and the shootouts they've been good at this year. The Bruins have been on Pastrnak. When you watch him this year, and I know he had 60 goals last year, right? So how can he get much better? But or how can you appear more dominant? He just does. Like his presence out there. He doesn't seem to be. Not that he really was last year at that point in his career, but he's just not getting knocked off pucks. Really, he's initiating contact. He looks a little bit bigger. He just looks like he's I mean, he looks like he's in the prime of his career, simply put. And to be playing this way, obviously without Bergeron and Krejci, and he played with the two of them never at the same time, but those were his running mates in one form or another over his entire career. So to be the guy, and you can say he was the guy last year anyway, but he is the guy now, undisputed, and he just seems to do whatever he wants out there. It just is what it is. He just all three phases of the game, he just seems more mature, and I think that's the only way where his game could have grown from 60 goals last year, is just to keep rounding out the other aspects of his game outside of scoring, and that's getting bigger, stronger, more confident, imposing his will more. And there's just a confidence to his game right now where it's like, yeah, he's one of the best hockey players in the world, and he and everybody else around him knows it.
Yeah, I think you see him like embracing, being an alternate captain and taking on more of a leadership role where you mentioned like, sometimes helping to set the tone physically, which we saw Saturday, and, definitely interesting to get your guys' thoughts on the hit where, in my mind, he crosses the line a little bit there. But also, I think you're seeing him play selfless, like earlier in the season where teams are just so focused on taking away a shot on the power play. All right, then he'll set more up. Like I haven't checked in, but he was on pace to like blow away his career high in power play assists. And that's because, okay, the shot I want isn't there. Fine, then I'll pass it to the open team. If you're sending two guys towards me, then someone's open. And he's been doing a good job finding that. So, those are the things you expect from a team leader and someone who, like you said, isn't just worried about scoring goals and is trying to do other things to help the team win.
Yeah, and like when they take away that one-timer on the power play for him, he's had to find other ways to score on the power play, which he has, and he's found ways to move the puck to those open players, like you mentioned. And is he still leading the team in hits?
I don't think so. I'm pretty sure it's Frederick.
He was at one point in the season leading the Bruins in hits, and you can see him just not slowing down and not holding back whenever he has a guy lined up. And it was a big hit that he laid that got him ultimately ejected, but you could see what he was trying to do and that the intention was not an injury. And I do think it was right on the borderline where it could have been 2 minutes or it could have been 5. Like you said, Scott, it was close enough to a hit that they want to get out of the game that it's you can't be mad at the fact that he ends up getting the 5 for it. So, I think I agree with you on that call, on the call at least.
Brian, quickly before you go, Pasternak's down to 8th on the team in hits now. Frederick first with 51. Johnny Beecher second with 47.
Interesting. Who's 3 through 7?
Charlie Coyle 3, Brendan Carlo 4, Jacob Lauko 5, Zaka and Forbert tied for 6th.
Zaka, huh? Interesting. So, I mean, the hit, I kind of, I agree with Bridget. I think it was kind of borderline. The difference here for me is, like, were the numbers being shown? Yeah, but not until very late. It was kind of one of those, if you go back and watch it, Pastrnak kind of commits to the hit when Lindgren is kind of still, on his side. You know what I mean? And then Lindgren kind of, goes for the puck, and then that's when his back becomes exposed. Whereas like the Giovanni Smith one on Marchand, I was like, you saw numbers the whole way. I think the length of time where numbers are being shown, I think, makes a difference in this situation. But obviously, I think it's certainly a minor penalty for boarding, whatever you want to call it.
It kind of looked like too he wasn't trying to hit like the back. He was trying to hit the shoulder more than anything else, and not like the nameplate or the numbers. But he did get enough of it.
Yeah, and it's also like it's a play on a loose puck, right? Like it's Lindgren is he's in position to he is an appropriate player to be hit in that situation. It's not interference. It's not like, you know what I mean? Like he should be again, players need to do a better job of bracing for contact and not putting themselves in bad positions. I think that there are certain plays where, like, if you're a lefty like Lindgren is, and you're going to play a puck with your backhand, you're gonna to shovel it along the boards. Yeah, there's only so much you can do to protect yourself, right? It's good in theory, but things happen fast. So again, I think it was definitely a penalty. I don't know if it merited a game misconduct, but if they deemed it that, which they did, I'm not gonna argue about it too much. I personally would have given him a 2-minute minor, but for boarding. But again, injury happened. There was blood or whatever, and they're gonna take that into account. So
yeah, and I'm just fascinated to see like where the NHL goes on hits from behind and boarding, because like obviously there's the whole thing with like Cousins' hit on Goodbranson, which wasn't punished on the play, and you end up with a retaliation, and it's like the NHL can't seem to make up its mind in terms of whether it wants to take that seriously and like cut down on it, or just let them go, or have them be minor penalties. Like I've been on this for like a little while. I think I even mentioned it on one of the recent episodes, but to me, it's like the call that they are by far the most inconsistent on. Like it's like refs just are guessing night to night on whether someone should be no call, minor, major in a game misconduct, and then like forget the supplemental discipline of it. There's almost none for any of these, and good thing there's not for Pastrnak. Like that would have been based on the standard. Like it would have been pretty outrageous if we heard that he had a meeting with player safety or something.
Well, and this is something that college hockey does so much better than the NHL. Like I feel like the college hockey, they're much quicker to give game misconducts, and they're more likely to give supplemental discipline as well. But that's because there's an intention behind the way that they ref their games, and that they are not allowing any of those dangerous hits. If it's borderline, you're getting 5-minute major. Like it's just kind of a philosophy. We're trying to protect players. That is the goal of the NCAA. And I watch and broadcast so many college hockey games, and I've talked to Hockey East's lead referee as well a few times, and I think he just got inducted into the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame, maybe. But yeah. So I've talked to their head of officiating, and he always says like, we talk to our referees on a daily basis. Like if they get something wrong and then they don't like pass this certain test that they give all of their refs randomly, then they get reviewed. Like refs get reviewed constantly in college hockey, and I feel like they get it right more often as well.
I also don't know if you guys realized that there was a bit of a history there between Pastrnak and Ryan Lindgren last year in New York. Lindgren kind of finished him hard on the right wing boards in transition, and then I think Pastrnak came back like maybe a few shifts later, a period, and Lindgren was admiring his pass, and then Pastrnak came from the blind side and hit him pretty good, and was called for interference. So it just seems like, and I also remember when Lindgren was a rookie-ish, he had a scuffle with with Bergeron and Marchand net front, and he just seems to be a thorn in the side of the Bruins when they play. And obviously, being a Bruins draft pick, and then obviously getting traded in the Rick Nash deal, I'm sure that he plays with a chip on his shoulder when he does play Boston. But he's a player that, had he stuck around in Boston, obviously hindsight's 2020. The Rick Nash trade, I think anybody would be disingenuous if they were to say in hindsight that like they wouldn't have done that trade at the time. Like the Bruins were a really good team and had a pretty good deadline, and you add Rick Nash to that team, and it was kind of like they had a really, really high ceiling, and they fell to a really good Tampa Bay team. And at the time, it was like, sure, send off this kid Lindgren. But he turns out to be a really pesky top 4 defenseman in the NHL.
Yeah.
Well, and
wait, can I just say something really quick? Because it's funny that you mentioned Rick Nash, and I had just mentioned. So the referee, the head of referees that I was talking about, his name is Brian Murphy, and he did just get inducted into the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame just about a few weeks ago. I was sitting in between Rick Nash and Brian Murphy at a hockey game a month ago. One was on my right, one was on my left. It was just kind of funny that I just mentioned someone, you just mentioned another person, and they were both, for different reasons, at that game. Rick Nash is now a scout for Columbus, and Brian Murphy was there trying to make sure he was on top of, seeing how his officials were doing in that game. So,
yeah, I was just going to say, like, Brian, to add on to your history of bad blood between the Bruins don't like Lindgren. He doesn't like the Bruins. That incident with Bergeron, it was after that Marchand said he's not going to have a very long career in the NHL, which was not an accurate prediction because Lindgren, as you said, it turned out to have a very nice career and has made a really good partner for Adam Fox. So, but yeah, I think it started right around then and I don't think it's ever changed. Like, I think it's just been kind of disrespect and some hatred from both sides.
Definitely a player that you talk about Trent Frederick being a part of the was blue collar AC
Lunch pail.
lunch
lunch
pail.
pail AC. Ryan Lindgren, that he's another player that would fit in that category, and definitely a Bruins style player, at least a historically Bruins style of player. I know the game's been changing a little bit the last 5, 6, 7 years, but yeah, I mean, look, like I said, I don't want to be a hypocrite. Like, at the time, I was all for trading for Rick Nash. I thought he was what the Bruins needed, bona fide player in that league. But yeah, I mean, I like Lindgren's game a lot, and I think he looked good in a Bruins uniform. But that ship has sailed a long time ago, and the Rangers realize his value and his worth, and I think he's kind of a staple for them on the back end. Obviously, a different type of staple than Adam Fox, but he's the guy that's gonna block all those shots and take all those hits and do all the dirty work for them. So he's an important player, and yeah. All
Yeah,
right.
he outlasted Nash by quite a while. Obviously, he was just a prospect back then, but Nash has been out of the league for a while, and it did not turn out how the Bruins expected it to.
Yeah, I mean,
unfortunately.
like, unfortunately, there's a concussion basically
Yeah.
right when he gets to the Bruins, and
Yeah.
they just like threw it all off from the start. And it's a good what if. Like, I still wonder how that might have turned out if that doesn't happen and things go a little better, because I think there might have been talk about an extension after that. And
Mm-hmm. He was genuinely, too, one of the nicest people I've talked to. Like, he was so nice. Yeah, I sat there and talked to him for about 20 minutes just about college hockey, and he was so nice.
Yeah, for the career he had, he did have a very quiet exit out of the league, and kind of reminds me of like Nathan Horton with the Bruins. Like, he wins the Stanley Cup with the Bruins in 2011. He's part of the team in 2012, gets hurt. 2013, he's back on that top line, and then that summer he gets traded to, or not traded. I think he just left in free agency, but he goes to Columbus and like played maybe a dozen games that year, and then you just never heard of him again. Like, a couple of years, like literally a year removed from being a top line player in the league, and actually was a top line player in the league at the time of his retirement, just forced to retire. It's crazy when you see
He still lives in Columbus.
Does he?
And he works for the Blue Jackets. Like I said, he's a scout.
Nash, right?
Nash or Horton?
Nash.
Oh, Nash. Sorry.
Yeah. No,
Yeah, Nash lives in Columbus right
Horton
now.
might still live in Columbus for all we know too, but
Right.
just another quiet, end to an NHL career. Like again, like the Horton one, he literally was a top liner when he was forced to retire and leave the game. But
Yeah, and again, like unfortunately, just what injuries can do. With Horton, I think it was like his neck or his back, and
yeah,
just something like he just couldn't recover from.
It was his back.
Yeah.
Well, he did carry the Bruins in a lot of those playoff series too against the Canadiens and the Lightning with some key moments. So definitely he was on the top 100, right? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was.
Sure. Yeah. Do you remember where he ranked? What range he was in, Scott?
Well, they didn't release like a ranking of the 100. I think I had him in the 50s on my list. And just because, like you said, just because of the huge moments, like that's a guy who didn't have to be here a long time to be a legend. When you score as many big goals as he did during the Cup run, like
yeah, no, exactly. He was great. He was a fun player to watch when he was healthy. Okay, any final takeaways from the weekend that was, or anything coming up we should talk about?
Well, just because we were talking about the lunch pail era and the ceremony that they had, I know like that maybe this is just me, but it seemed like a lot of people were pretty moved by Norm Levier coming out and dropping the puck. And I'm not sure if he had even told anyone that he was going to try to stand and drop it. And yeah, it made me cry. Okay. It was definitely one of those things where it caused a pretty strong reaction from the crowd, from everybody watching.
yeah, and listening to Ray Bork talk about that during the second period when he was in the Nesson booth and talk about, his original, the brain aneurysm that ended his career, and just how scary, for people who might not know, like Norm Levier was a really highly touted prospect, and at just 19 years old in 1982, suffered a brain aneurysm during a game out in Vancouver that nearly killed him. Ray Bork said because Bork was injured at the time, he was back in Boston. He said he got a call, and I think he said it was Steve Casper who called him and said like they didn't think he was going to make it through the night, and he ended up in a coma, and obviously eventually, thank God, pulled out of that, but his hockey career was over. And yeah, bringing him out on the ice, it brought back memories of the closing of the old Boston Garden when they brought him out on the ice for that. So yeah, that was a really awesome moment.
Yeah, that's they've done a really good job with the Eras Nights.
Yeah.
We've been at the Garden for a few of them, and we were there for opening night. They've done a good job making guys available to us, like having guys be able to tell their own story, go on in the intermissions, the pregame ceremonies. Everything has been very well done on these Era Nights so far.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. You took the words out of my mouth there with the Era Nights and just everything in general. Any event, or even down to social media, like everything in the centennial season for the Bruins has been top notch and
What
really
about the
good.
jerseys?
Yeah, okay, maybe not everything, but
well,
besides
the third ones that they wear for these Era Nights, those are great.
Those are great. Yeah, I do like those. But anyway, maybe the 100th season will end in another championship. Would be their 7th Stanley Cup. 6 in 100. They got 6 in the first 99.
Yeah, 6. Yeah.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. Long way to go to get there, though. Okay, so coming up, they have Minnesota, I believe, on Tuesday.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, they play Minnesota like twice in like the same week, and I've noticed that for some reason when the Bruins play Western Conference teams, oftentimes like they're within like the same week of each other. Like they played the Blackhawks twice off the hop. They played the Ducks twice off the hop. They play the Wild twice in a week. It's like there's got to be something there where the NHL just like tries to get these interconference home and homes out of the way. Because how else do you explain that? Like, you know what I mean? It's not just like one occurrence. It happens throughout the schedule. If you actually pay attention, you'll see it more than a few times.
Yeah, and like even within conferences, you get this a lot where you know play them on the road, then they come back home. But it's more noticeable with the Western Conference teams because that's the only two times you play them. So, like Bruins being done with Connor Bedard a week into his career, it was like, all right, guess we'll see Connor Bedard next year.
Yeah.
Yeah, it worked out okay. Well, actually, he still scored on him, but
Yeah. Just
scored
trying
his
to
first goal at the Garden. Actually, first
he
NHL
did.
goal was at the Garden.
Yeah. Yeah, the league's trying to build that Bruins Wild rivalry. Get it going this year. So, but
And
okay, but
Winnipeg in there too. No better place to be around the holidays than Winnipeg.
mhm.
By the way, I'm a little bit bummed out that one of those games right before the holiday isn't in Boston because my Christmas gift for Scott isn't coming in until the 22nd, which means I can't give it to him Tuesday. And I might just have to show up at his house and give him it. And yours, Brian, as well. But
Yeah.
I was hoping to like get it in and give it to Scott at the Garden. But no, they're on the road the 22nd and 23rd.
Gotta come down the chimney.
Yeah. He's going to love it. He's going to absolutely love it.
I
What'd you get
know.
me?
I'll show you guys when we record in person. We gotta have one of these.
I think we might have to in order for me to give you guys your gifts.
Yeah. StreamYard might miss us for an episode, but it'd be worth it.
So the problem is Bridget is a great gift giver and actually gives thoughtful gifts, and I'm just not. First off, I'm just not a thoughtful person, so
Can confirm. No, I'm just kidding. I that is one of my strengths. I'm good at making gifts. That's the real danger, is that I can make almost anything. I made you guys homemade meth bear glasses, beer glasses last year. I made Scott a meth bear mouse pad for last season.
Did you make the skate pod t-shirts?
I made us skate pod t-shirts. And I designed this gift for this year as well. So you're always gonna get a custom gift from me.
If I made stuff for you guys, it would be stick figures and macaroni.
Scott gave us Treehouse last year, which was perfect for the beer glasses. So
that's true. You guys will have to hang tight to see what I got you. In the meantime, I actually think we should try to record in person. I think at least once. Maybe
we should. I want to see Scott's face when he opens his gift.
I mean, even if it's not in person, I can open it on the pod.
True.
I can save it.
True.
All right. Oh, and Scott, congratulations. You were on the right side of history, I think, with our last Twitter poll. More people than not are satisfied with Jake DeBrusk's play outside of the lack of production.
Yep.
So, bunch of homers. No, I'm just kidding.
No, but the funny thing is that the homer thing kind of feels like it's to like shit on Jake DeBrusk. Kind of feels like the thing that people have been. I don't know. I'm on Scott's side and the polls side.
Yeah. He had a couple of games this weekend, right? A few good games, DeBrusk.
No, yeah, I thought so.
Okay, yeah.
Brian was being sarcastic.
Well, no, I did think he was creating some chances, and he got moved off that top line, or I guess maybe it depends on what you want to call top line, but he ends up with Marchand and Coyle, and I thought he helped. I still don't love the Marchand and Coyle combination together, but I thought DeBrusk helped them look a little better than they had when it was Frederick there. Like he just brought at least a little jump to that line that was needed, but yeah, still no goals. So
I mean, I liked them against the Rangers. I thought he had some jump, but yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, he played on the power play against the Islanders, but not the Rangers. Like top unit, I should say. Like I don't know why, especially when Pastrnak was out, Zach is out. Like why he wasn't getting more time on the top unit, but instead, it's going to Kiki and JVR, and he's not used on the power play all that much, even at times when it seems like it could be a natural spot for them to cycle him in.
Well, don't you think that's kind of if Montgomery, his head coach, were thrilled with his game outside of the production, don't you think he'd be throwing him out on the power play a little bit? Like, I feel like who I feel like might not be, on team. He's helping us find ways to win outside of scoring is his coach and his GM and I feel like the Bruins internally are probably like, this kid's got to help us a little bit more than he is.
I don't really agree. I mean, Montgomery's giving him the third most 5-on-5 minutes.
But he's he should be a power play player though. He has a skill set. I don't know why he's not getting power play time when
I mean, I just think I think he plays the same spot as Van Riemsdyk, and Van Riemsdyk's just better at it and has been his whole career. Like, I don't know. Maybe if you moved DeBrus to the bumper or something, but I think they like Geeky there. They like Zaka there when he's healthy. So
Geeky scored from there.
Unfortunately for DeBrus, like he's going to be a net front guy, and he's going to be behind Van Riemsdyk on the depth chart there.
Yeah. All right. Well, had to get that little jab in there before we finish the recording, per usual. Also, Bridget, am I going crazy, or did Scott's lighting change?
I look blue. I don't know. I don't know why that happened.
You look blue. Brian looks yellow.
I didn't realize we were recording with Blue Man Group over here, but yeah.
Well, mine is because I have this weird light, but Scott, I don't know what happened with Scott.
I don't know. My camera decided to do a gender reveal mid podcast.
It's a boy.
Oh God. All right. We should probably wrap it up here. So thank you all for listening. Have a great start to your work week, and we'll talk to you very soon. Hey guys, thanks for watching the Skate Podcast. If you want to see more of our videos, visit our playlist.
Not in front of a screen? You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Don't forget to follow us on social media. And if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and leave a comment.